40 years of WrestleMania. That's like more years than the world's been alive. Just in time for WrestleMania Extra Large, we have gone through all 39 showcases of all 448 Immortals to find the very best match from every Mania. At least WWE isn't trying to say this is the 40th anniversary of WrestleMania. We don't need that headache again. I'm Tempest hailing from partsFUNknown, and this is the greatest match from every WrestleMania. But before we get on with this list, please make sure that you like this video, hit subscribe, and enable notifications to always on so you never miss a fun bit of WrestleMania list content just like this. WrestleMania 1, Ricky Steamboat vs. Matt Bourne. WrestleMania 1 is not a show known for its in-ring quality, so a 5-minute match between an all-time great in Ricky Steamboat and the underratedly great performer Matt Bourne, aka the original Doink the Clown, takes the top spot. WrestleMania 2, the British Bulldogs vs. the Dream Team. There are only a couple wrestling matches on the pile of dog dirt that was WrestleMania 2, and conveniently, the British Bulldogs were involved. Not sure I could look at the '92 US Olympic basketball team and the duo of Brutus Beefcake and Greg Valentine and give them the same name, but it's not Michael Jordan's fault he has to be compared to Brutus Beefcake. WrestleMania 3, Randy Savage vs. Ricky Steamboat. The first all-time classic match in WrestleMania history, and the match that informed people who only watched WWE in the 80s that in-ring wrestling can be good. WrestleMania 4, Randy Savage vs. Ted DiBiase. This isn't a great main event or even a great match, but it is the only thing on the show that really makes me feel alive when I watch it. That might be because the show is almost over, or it might be because a wonderfully fitting new world champion was crowned. Take your pick. WrestleMania 5, The Ultimate Warrior vs. Rick Rude. I can't tell you why, but the finish of this match has stuck with me ever since I saw it as a wee lad. Rude lays out across Warrior's shoulders, Heenan grabs the legs, and Warrior was f***ed. It's not a great match, but I've seen this finish done dozens of times since, and it's almost never this good, as simple as it is. WrestleMania 6, Hulk Hogan vs. The Ultimate Warrior. It took 6 tries, but WWE finally had a classic WrestleMania main event on their hands with Hulk Hogan and The Ultimate Warrior. Not sure how many people would have expected that combo to be the one to produce such a result, but the Sky Dome got a treat. WrestleMania 7, The Ultimate Warrior vs. Randy Savage. 3 straight appearances for The Ultimate Warrior is a bit surprising, but where better to have the most sports entertainment match to ever sports entertainment than WrestleMania. 5 straight elbows from Macho, a kick out, a look to the heavens, a boot on the chest, and the greatest WWE reunion of all time. Are you not sports entertained? WrestleMania 8, Ric Flair vs. Randy Savage. It is appalling that this wasn't the main event of WrestleMania 8, but Hogan's gonna Hogan. Still, a fantastic 18-minute world title match was not commonplace at Mania, but was emblematic of the direction WWE's in-ring product was heading. WrestleMania 9, Shawn Michaels vs. Tatanka. When an opener ending in a countout is the best match of your WrestleMania, it might begin to explain why people have been clowning on Mania 9 for the last 30 years. WrestleMania 10, Bret Hart vs. Owen Hart. For my money, still the greatest opening match in WrestleMania history. A story beautifully told, a match expertly wrestled, and the snot-nosed kid brother getting the win with a big old goober on his face. Perfection. WrestleMania 11, Shawn Michaels vs. Diesel. This one is a good match on a wretched WrestleMania, but for as good as it is, it also fails at its goal of getting Diesel over as the dominant champion he was meant to be. Shawn Michaels was the star of the show, and Diesel kicking out of Shawn's finishing sequence at 1 backfired badly. WrestleMania 12, Shawn Michaels vs. Bret Hart. Well, this entry should anger both the fans that love this match and the ones that hate this match, because while this is the best match from WrestleMania 12, it is there because of the 2 sweetest words in the English language. Default, default, default. WrestleMania 13, Bret Hart vs. Steve Austin. There are one-match shows, and then there's WrestleMania 13, an otherwise quite bad show that just so happens to have perhaps the greatest WWE match of all time on it. A match so good that it changed the trajectory of the careers of 2 of the most important figures in WWE history. A 10 out of 10 classic. All the stars. WrestleMania 14, Steve Austin vs. Shawn Michaels. Steve Austin and Shawn Michaels more or less went through their WrestleMania 14 main event on autopilot due to HBK's back injury, with Austin even saying they did practically the same match he and Triple H had been doing on the house shows prior, but even these 2 on autopilot will produce a better match than 95% of wrestlers could ever hope to. WrestleMania 15, Steve Austin vs. The Rock. WrestleMania 15 is the perfect encapsulation of WWE in 1999, a abomination of an undercard, ludicrous booking, but the most captivating main event scene of all time. It's Austin, it's Rock, it's practically WWE folklore at this point. WrestleMania 2000, the Hardys versus the Dudleys versus Edge and Christian. TLC 0 started the trend of the multi-man Mania ladder match for undercard guys, and it would earn this spot just with that distinction, but it also gave us one of the greatest table breaks of all time, courtesy of Matt Hardy. WrestleMania X7, Steve Austin versus The Rock. There are about 4 real options for the best match of the best Mania of all time, but it's like I said earlier, it's Austin, it's Rock, and at WrestleMania X7 they capped off the most popular era in WWE history the only way appropriate. Together. WrestleMania 18, Hulk Hogan versus The Rock. When The Rock steps through the curtain and points at his goosebumps every time he's appeared for WWE for the last 14 years, I think he's still waiting for them to go down from this match. WrestleMania 19, Shawn Michaels versus Chris Jericho. While Shawn Michaels of the 90s may have been Mr. WrestleMania by name, Shawn Michaels of the 2000s was truly Mr. WrestleMania by reputation. Mania 19 has no shortage of excellent matches, but the return of the showstopper to his office is too special to pass up. WrestleMania 20, Triple H versus Shawn Michaels versus Chris Benoit. A match that under different circumstances could be seen as the greatest WrestleMania main event of all time. Maybe it still is in your opinion, but for as great as this match is, it will always leave a bitter taste. WrestleMania 21, Shawn Michaels versus Kurt Angle. My personal favorite WWE match of all time, and I don't think I can truly sum up my love for it or the men involved in a couple of sentences, so just do yourself a favor today and go watch this one. Tempest, seal of approval. WrestleMania 22, Edge versus Mick Foley. There may be no scarier sight in wrestling than Mick Foley slumped over in the locker room listening to Tori Amos getting in the zone for a hardcore match, especially when it produces the kind of WrestleMania-defining match we got in 2006. Any doubts people had about Edge as a main event guy were put to bed here, and I salute this match for that. WrestleMania 23, the Money in the Bank ladder match. While the TLC Tag Team Trio of 2000 introduced the world to the multi-man ladder match at a WrestleMania, the staple of the 2000s WrestleMania ladder matches was the Money in the Bank match. Always a highlight of Mania, but none stole the show quite like the all-star lineup of WrestleMania 23. WrestleMania 24, Edge versus The Undertaker. And so begins the string of Undertaker WrestleMania show-stealing matches. What do you do to a guy that has a counter to every one of your most iconic moves? You choke his ass out with your brand new finish to the biggest pop of the match. A truly perfect story. WrestleMania 25, Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker. From a perfect finish from a storytelling perspective to a perfect finish from a sheer artistry perspective. Maybe the most beautiful setup for a tombstone ever, after what might be the second most beautiful setup for a tombstone earlier in the match for a near fall. A legendary match. Also, funny Undertaker face. WrestleMania 26, Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker. I mean, it's just as good as their match at 25, it just has Matt Stryker on commentary. WrestleMania 27, Triple H versus The Undertaker. Every so often, you are faced with a horrible dynamic in wrestling that can actually elevate a big match, like the possibility that WWE and Triple H might actually be dumb enough to end Undertaker's streak. That, ladies and gentle people, is the fear that makes some of these near falls just a little extra spicy. WrestleMania 28, Triple H versus The Undertaker. Triple H and The Undertaker were the masters of the Hell in a Cell match, yet they'd never gone one-on-one in the cage. So when it was announced that their long-awaited rematch from the year prior would be such a match, with Shawn Michaels as the referee, it truly felt like an all-time dream match. And it delivered. WrestleMania 29, CM Punk versus The Undertaker. And so the string of Undertaker show-stealing Mania matches comes to an end with really the only good thing about WrestleMania 29. CM Punk may not have gotten a main event Mania, but he certainly did steal it. WrestleMania 30, Daniel Bryan versus Randy Orton versus Batista. The greatest feel-good ending to a WrestleMania of all time, and all it took was all the stars in the Milky Way aligning and fans forcing it all to happen. But don't let WWE hear you say that this wasn't the plan. WrestleMania 31, Brock Lesnar versus Roman Reigns versus Seth Rollins. It should not come as a surprise to people that the most acclaimed match that Brock Lesnar and Roman Reigns had is the one where they both lost. But in fairness, the match getting there was pretty much perfect as well. WrestleMania 32, Charlotte Flair versus Sasha Banks versus Becky Lynch. After a disastrous start to the Divas Revolution, copyright trademark, the Women's Evolution, copyright trademark, kicked off in full force at WrestleMania 32. Complete with the retirement of the butterfly belt, superstar entrances, and a show-stealing match with the division's 3 biggest stars. WrestleMania 33, Shane McMahon versus AJ Styles. I don't think a WrestleMania opening match against Shane McMahon would be considered by many to be a fitting reward after a Wrestler of the Year campaign and a stellar WWE title run, but AJ Styles could turn water into wine, chicken shit into chicken salad, and Shane's punches into a great match. WrestleMania 34, Ronda Rousey and Kurt Angle versus Stephanie McMahon and Triple H. By all accounts, this should not have been as good as it was, but Ronda Rousey, having one of the best WWE debuts ever, being put over huge by both Triple H and Stephanie McMahon, was exactly what it should have been. Also, this was like the only time Ronda didn't wear the stupid eye makeup, so bonus points. WrestleMania 35, Daniel Bryan versus Kofi Kingston. The culmination of the best bit of Daniel Bryan's WWE run post-retirement and the culmination of Kofi Mania. A title win that should have come 10 years earlier, but a match and a moment that will forever be remembered. As long as WWE gets over Bryan moving out, that is. WrestleMania 36, the Firefly Funhouse. When the world shuts down and we can't see Superman take on the big scary monster, you pivot, you adjust, and you make a video essay in the form of a match. This was every theater kid's wet dream, and truthfully, one of the most brilliantly told bits of storytelling WWE has ever produced. WrestleMania 37, Sasha Banks versus Bianca Belair. It is a damn good thing for the sake of this match that the builds to these matches are not factored into the decision-making process because that aside, this match is fantastic, history-making and legacy-establishing for Bianca Belair, who in the years since has made herself Miss WrestleMania. WrestleMania 38, Becky Lynch versus Bianca Belair. Speaking of Miss WrestleMania, Bianca Belair skipped into WrestleMania 38 ready to right the massive wrong that was her loss to Becky Lynch at SummerSlam. From the amazing entrances of both women, to the match that I recently rewatched and was blown away at how much better it is than I remembered, and I remembered it being great to begin with, this is one of the greatest women's matches in North American wrestling history. And WrestleMania 39, the Usos versus Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. There was only one acceptable way to end the main event of Night 1 of WrestleMania 39, and that was Sami Zayn pinning Jey Uso. Everyone's favorite WWE story in literal years, culminating in the best possible match. And that's our list. Make sure, of course, that you like this video, subscribe, and enable notifications to always on so you never miss another list just like it. And check out this clip from last week's list here. For a Wii since the Royal Rumble. Thankfully, there's a perfectly good elimination chamber here with 4 very convenient cubicles. Okay, I don't like where this bit is going, so we're gonna move on. The Elimination Chamber has become the stopgap between the Royal Rumble and WrestleMania, with the show of shows' biggest matches being set up in the box of boxes. The ideal scenario